Hi, Mitch, how are you?
Okay.
Okay, what we're going to do today, we're going to start off by learning the beginning of the life story of Shimshon. Okay, last night, before I went to sleep, all of a sudden, I remembered a very famous chapter in the Moreh Nevuchim of the Rambam, and it'll be on your screen in a few minutes, because I want to learn it with you inside. Okay, so what's written here? It's written after the famous introduction, which we've given two shurim on the subject. We are going to, where the angel comes and speaks to the parents, and in actual fact, it's written there that the mother was told that, the mother of Shimshon was told that he will begin to save Am Yisrael. It's written the following, in line number 5. Vateled ha'isha, Ben vatikra et shmo Shimshon, vayigadel hanar vayivarcheu Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed him. What did he bless him with? He blessed him with a lot of qualities. One of the qualities was that he was very strong. Another quality was that he cared for other people. And that we'll see in the next statement. Vatachel ruach Hashem lefa'amo. And the Spirit of God began to, now the word lefa'amo is to disturb, can be explained in many different ways. Awaken him, disturb him. The word pe'ima, or what we know as the follow days, is what we call pa'amim, sometimes. Doesn't mean sometimes in the language of the Torah. It means you become very disturbed, or you become like something awakens you, like a bell. In the camp of Dan, between Sorah and Eshtaol, which we know nowadays is in around Beit Shemesh area, between Beit Shemesh and Kiryat Gat. Eshtaol now is where the new Ikea is built for the area of Yerushalayim. Okay, and that is the area we're talking about. Now, what does he do? He walks around. He walks around in that area. And what does he see in the area? He sees in the area the Philistines slowly entering a guerrilla warfare with Am Yisrael. Now, we're going to analyze this sentence, which is quite an amazing sentence. Where does the word lefa'amo? First of all, vatachel. Vatachel comes from the word hatchala, beginning. But it doesn't always mean beginning. It also can mean the word you cover yourself up. Okay? You begin to bring out things. Atachel ruach Hashem, and the Spirit of God, and we'll see that the Spirit of God is the lowest standard of Ruach HaKodesh. Now, what does the word lefa'amo mean? Where do we have the word lefa'amo in the Tanakh? We have the first time it's mentioned, the word lefa'amo is written concerning Paro. Vayhi baboker, after the dreams, right? The dreams of the 7 cows and the dreams of the 7 gatherings of the wheat. Vatipa'em rucho, and his spirit was nif'am. Now, where the word nif'am means is quite amazing. Let's look at the Ketava Kabbalah. Vatipa'em rucho targumo umitrafe. Sorry, before I forget, I was asked that this shiur should be in the memory of, hold on a minute, in the memory of Chaya Rivka Bat Yosef Sally Wolf. She's the mother of Mitch Wolf, okay? And this shiur is in his memory, in her memory. Vayiba Boker Vatipa'em Rucho, says the Ketava Kabbalah, Vatipa'em Rucho Tirgumo umitrafe. He was completely disturbed. Rayonotav, his ideas, his thoughts, Hayumatul Talim, were completely mixed up. Chasrei menucha, they were lack of rest. He didn't have the ability to concentrate. Machshavotav, his thoughts, Hayu mitnoim, they were moving around. Vini bilti margo, he was never calm. Kilashon sfina hamaturefet bayam, like a boat, a ship which has been which goes around in the waves and pushed from side to side. So therefore, this guy, Paro, is like in a feeling of seasickness. That is the word Batipaem in this context of Paro. Also, Shimshon, the Spirit of God began to disturb him. It awakened him, and he got very disturbed from it. And here, the Rabbenu also says, "V'zachar sheruach Hashem התחילה לפעמו." רוצה לומר שלא היה שכלו מיושב. His thoughts weren't clear in line number 20. כי אם בלתי מסודר ונפעם כפעמון. It was like the bell, okay, going from side to side. The noise was disturbing him. From side to side he was going. And he doesn't understand it. ושהתחיל זה, and this began, בהיותו במחנה דן, בין צורעה ובין אשתאול. Between צורעה and אשתאול. Chazal have a different explanation. We'll see quite an amazing explanation. Also, Chazal say the following. Vatachel ruach Hashem. What does the word vatachel mean? Chazal say on this, Amar Rabbi Bar Chama Bar Chanina, Chalta nevuato shel Yaakov Avinu. The beginning of the prophecy of Yaakov Avinu began. What does it mean? Yehi dan nachash alei derech. You'll be like a snake on the ground. That means he will behave like a snake. Shimshon will behave like a snake, which doesn't walk straight, but he slithers around. And therefore, so to speak, Shimshon was a loner. He was like a snake. But there's something very interesting about the Shevet of Dan. The Shevet of Dan is Dan. Yehuda is also considered like an Aryeh. But also, very interesting is that also Dan is also considered like a snake, like a lion. It's written concerning Dan, the following statement. It's written, Dan Gur Aryeh. Moshe Rabbenu says, Dan will also be like a young lion. Yezanek, he will jump forth, Mina Bashan. 2 tribes were given the bracha of an Aryeh. Yehuda, where Yaakov Avinu says, Yehuda Gur Aryeh Yehuda, and it's written by Dan by Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu sees in the tribe of Dan also the qualities of a lion. But this lion will behave not as a leader, like Yehuda will behave, but his strength will be like that of a lion. But his behavior will be like a snake. 2 types of people there are. You have people who are leaders of a nation, and you have a person who at the time of his life is not a leader, but in retrospect, he was a leader, but people didn't appreciate him. And you have many times in history, great people who at the time were not appreciated, and therefore they behaved in strange ways. Shimshon had the strength of a lion. His behavior was that of a snake. And the 2 brachot of Yaakov and of Moshe appear in the behavior of Shimshon. And we know that the 2 people who built the base in the Mishkan, and we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, was Yehuda on the one hand, and Betzalel and Oliab from the tribe of Dan. Each one were lions in their ways, but each one had a different job to do, a different way of dealing with situations. And here, Shimshon goes around, and he has this bell in his brain, going from side to side. The beginning of it, let's go line 25. Vatachel ruach Hashem. Amar Rav Chama bar Chanina chalta nevuato shel Yaakov Avinu. The prophecy of Yaakov Avinu begins. Dichtiv yehi nachash alei derech. Lefa'amo, say Chazal. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Dvei Rav Ami melamed shayta shchinato mekashkeshet lefanav kazug. The divine providence was mekashkesh lefanav. In a bell, you have the, what's the thing called in the middle? Okay, the thing which makes the noise inside against the metal. I don't remember what the Hebrew, in Hebrew it's called in bal. I don't remember what the English one, like you have a big bell and it goes, the thing in the middle goes from side to side, like you have Big Ben in England or the Notre Dame in Paris. Shaya mishkashkeshet lefanav kazug. Ktiv hacha lefa'amo b'machane dan uchtiv hatam pa'amon v'rimon. And Rav Unterman gave a fascinating explanation. He said, Chazal in Daf Tet Amud Bet, Shayta shchinato mechashkeshet lefanav kezug, hatziyur nifla. The description is amazing. Ki mekashkeshim bezug al yad tinok. When you have a little bell next to a baby, the tinok matchil listovev b'mitato ana v'ana. He looks around in his cot. Umitametz limtso meheichan yotze hatziltzul. Where does the ringing of the bell take place? Kach haya etzel Shimshon. Shinitorer bo koach rav. When he had this amazing strength, lo yada ma lasot b'gvurat b'ruach hagvura shepa'am b'libo. He didn't know what he was needed for. He didn't understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him this unbelievable strength. Ad shehevin, until he understood, ki nishlach me'et hashgacha shmeimit. He was sent by the divine providence, la'azor livnei amo, to help his people, hasovlim, who were suffering, kol kach milachat shchenehem. What did he mean? What does Rav Unterman mean by this? What does his mother pump into the brain of Shimshon from a young boy? You will begin to save Am Yisrael. And this is what his mother, the lesson which his mother constantly gives over to Shimshon. You are going to save Am Yisrael. You are going to save Am Yisrael. You are going to save Am Yisrael. And this statement goes in his brain the whole time. And all of a sudden, he has this ability to connect how the present which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him of this unbelievable strength to the message which his mother gave him the whole time. You are going to save Am Yisrael. And that's what it means, Vatachel. All of a sudden, Shimshon managed to join these messages together. The strength and the saving of Am Yisrael. And this was, if we look at it, Ruach Hashem, the Spirit of God. Let's go back to the sentence.
Can I ask a question?
1 minute. That's what it means. Vatachel Ruach Hashem lefa'amo. The Spirit of God begins to awaken him, to disturb him, to awaken him. And that's what he does. Right, questions? Yeah.
The snake generally is a kind of derogatory kind of thing.
What is? The snake, yeah. Derogatory, correct.
Why is he likened to a snake?
Because he will behave like a snake. He won't behave like a leader, like all the other shoftim were. All the other shoftim were appointed by the Jewish people, by different tribes, to save them. Shimshon, we will see, feels that the people aren't behind him. Okay? He feels that. They haven't got the strength to fight back. And therefore, what happens to them? They fall into the trap. And Shimshon realizes that if he's going to do anything, he won't succeed in uplifting and getting together the Jews who live in that area. So therefore, he behaves like a snake. Now, who was the first person who behaved like this? And now we're going to learn this fascinating chapter of the Moreh Nevuchim, which is in front of you on your screen. Okay? Now, let's look at the first stage of the Moreh Nevuchim.
What
Harishona,
line is that? What line?
what?
What
You'll
line?
see the top line. Okay, the Rambam says the following: Hamadrega, where the what's it called is.
Sorry, Rav, it's not on our screen. Are you sharing?
Oh, 1 minute. Sorry, you're right. I'm going to share now. You're right. Sorry, 1 minute. Let me just get into.
I've got the text that you sent out, but I don't know which line it is.
רב נחמיה, שנייה, אתה סגרת את המיקרופון שלך.
Mute now. בבקשה, אתם שומעים אותי?
עכשיו,
You hear me? Now let me go. I need לשתף. I need to participate a screen.
כן, בסדר, אתה יכול לעשות את זה דרך כפתור ירוק, אתה co-host.
רגע, אני לא יכול, כי אין לי את רגע, זה. שנייה. בסדר, okay, 1 minute. Share screen. Right, here. Share. Right.
עכשיו אנחנו נראה. כן,
Right.
בסדר גמור.
Okay, what I'm starting as is the following. Hamadrega harishona. Does everybody see it?
כן, כן, אנחנו רואים.
Right. Hamadrega harishona. Tchilat madregot hanavua. The beginning of the standards or of the levels of prophecy. What is the first level of prophecy, says the Rambam? Sheyilaveh leish ezer eloki. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will accompany somebody sheyaniu v'yazarzehu lemaseh tov gadol. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu will push him to do something great. Ka'atzalat kahal chashuv mikal re'im, to save a community from bad people. Or hitzil chashuv gadol, or he helps somebody great. Or yishpia tuvo anashim rabim, or he influences many people. V'yimtza me'atzmo lezeh meinian, he finds within himself somebody pushing him. Umevi la'asot. V'zeh tikareh ruach Hashem. This will be called the Spirit of God. V'ha'ish, and the man. Asher yelaveh elav ze ha'inyan, who does these things, yomar alav, it can be said about him. Shetzalcha alav ruach Hashem. The Spirit of God came upon him. Olav shah otuach Hashem. Or God brings him out. Onachat alav ruach Hashem. Oy Hashem imo. וכיוצא באלו השמות. וזאת היא מדרגת שופטי ישראל כולם. These are all the judges of Am Yisrael, אשר נאמר עליהם על הכלל, כי הקים השם להם שופטים. והיה עם השופט והושיעם, and God was with them, and he saved them. וזהו גם כן מדרגת יועצי ישראל החשובים כולם. These were the famous advisors of Am Yisrael. והתבאר זה בפרט בקצת השופטים והמלכים, ותהיה ליפתח רוח השם, ונאמר בשמשון, ותצלח עליו רוח השם, ונאמר ותצלח רוח אלוקים על שאול, וכן נאמר בעמסה, כאשר הניעו רוח הקודש, ורוח לבשה את המסע, ודע. Now, who was the first one who did this? ודע, שכמו זה, הכוח לא נבדל ממשה רבנו. מאת השיגו לגדר האנשים. Moshe Rabbeinu did not begin as a leader. The opposite. What did he do? The first thing he did was to help people. ולזה התעורר, להרוג את המצרי. This is when he woke up to kill the Egyptian. ולמנוע הרשע משני הניצים, and to stop the fighting between two people arguing. ומחוזק זה, הכוח בו, עד השחר פחדו, וברחו, והגיע לו מדיין. והוא גר ירא, and he runs away to מדיין. וכאשר ראה מאומה, and when he sees מן העוול, לא משל עצמו, when he sees bad things being done, not to him, but to other people, ולא יכול לסובלו, כמו שאמר, ויקום משה ויושיען. And Moshe Rabbenu gets up and saves these people, the girls, the daughters of Yitro. וכן נלווה אל דוד, כמו זה הכוח, אחר שנמשך בשמן המשחה, כמו שכתוב, ותצלח רוח אלוקים אל דוד, ולזה יתגבר אל הארי ואל הדוב הפלישתי, וכיוצא ברוח השם הזאת. לא הביאה אחד מאלו לדבר דבר. God never spoke to them at all. He never spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu. He never spoke to David HaMelech. He never spoke to Yiftach. He never spoke to anybody. What did he do? He gave them the ability to stand up and fight against bad things. Right. אבל תכלית זה הכוח, לעיר זה המוחזק לפועל אחד. ולא לאיזה פעל שיזדמן, אלא לעזור השוק. To help people who are downtrodden. אם אחד גדול או קהל, whether it be one person or a lot of people. Right, Rabotai. That is the introduction. So what do we see from here? We see from here something quite fascinating. We see from here that Moshe Rabbeinu is in actual fact the founder of this concept, saving people. Moshe Rabbeinu at the beginning is not a lion, he's a snake. He's somebody who works very, very quietly, slithering around. He sees an Egyptian hitting a Jew. He doesn't say, I'm speaking in the name of God. He feels that what? That things are bad. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu, in actual fact, gets up. He doesn't behave like a leader. He behaves like a snake. He then sees Datan v'Aviram arguing. He behaves like a snake. He sees the daughters of Yitro being attacked. He behaves like a snake. And Moshe Rabbeinu then is appointed by Hashem to lead the people. Now, why is that? Because Hashem sees there's a need for a leader. In the time of Shimshon, this does not take place. In the time of Shimshon, we in actual fact feel, or Shimshon feels, that there's no backing of the Jewish people. And since there's no backing of the Jewish people, therefore he has to behave like a snake all his life. If there are any questions on this, please ask, because this is perhaps one of the most important concepts which we're going to speak about when we learn about Shimshon. Is there any questions on this, or can we carry on? Please, I want you, please all write to me. You can unmute if you want, and please ask. But as to the concept which I want to speak about, how this takes place. He hears this bell in his brain going from side to side. I have these qualities. What am I supposed to use them for? How do I deal with it? I see all the Jewish people are what? Are in trouble. Can I lead? No, they're not up to it. And therefore Shimshon decides to do some actions. And now we're going to discuss his first action. And therefore, because of this, that Shimshon lives in this terrible, complex personality, the need to help, the strength. He feels that God is with him, to pushing him, but he's never had this commandment. On the other hand, he's had this in his brain from a young age. He's supposed to save. How am I going to deal with it? How am I going to do all these things in a generation where there's nobody to help him with? So therefore, he's got to find ways and means to, in actual fact, behave and begin to deal in guerrilla warfare against the Plishtim. That is the only way. But Rabotai, the minute you are a loner, and the minute you are doing things yourself, and there's no support, you are bound to fail in certain ways. And here we come to the complexities of Shimshon. Now, the first chapter 14, line number 35. Vayered Shimshon Timnata. Shimshon goes down to Timnah. Let's just translate it, and then we will begin to explain every statement. Vayarisha b'Timnata, not Plishtim. He sees a woman in Timnah from the Philistine children, daughters. Vayal, vayaged la'aviv limo, and he went up again. And he told his parents, Vayomer isha ra'iti b'Timnata miblot Plishtim. I've seen a girl from the Plishtim. Va'ata, and now, k'chu ota li l'isha. I want you to arrange the wedding between us. Vayomer la'aviv v'imo, and his parents say to him, Ein bivnot achecha uv'chol ami isha ki ata olech lakachat isha miplishtim harelim. Don't you think that there are enough Jewish girls that you need, that you can't take a wife from there, that you run into the Plishtim harelim? Take note of the sentence, Plishtim harelim. Vayomer Shimshon el aviv, ota, kachli, you've got to get her for me, ki yishara beinav. Va'aviv v'imo, and his parents lo yadu, ki me'Hashem hi. All this is from Hashem. Ki to'ana hu mevakesh miplishtim. He's trying to find a way where he can get into the system, the Plishti system. Uvaitahi, why does he want to get into the Plishtim? Uvaitahi, Plishtim moshlim b'Yisrael. The Plishtim are the rulers of Am Yisrael. Now, let's take sentence number 1, 2, 3. Those are the story. This is the story which we see in present. Line number 4, sentence number 4, Va'aviv v'imo lo yadu, is in actual fact a statement from the narrator of the story. Perhaps Shimshon isn't even aware that what's pushing him is the Spirit of God. Perhaps he's not aware of it. The narrator is telling us one thing. We are sure that his parents don't realize that all this is God pushing him. Does Shimshon realize it? We don't know. But on the other hand, we definitely have a statement of the narrator who is telling us in a retroactive way, in historical perspective, that all these things which Shimshon is doing is from Hashem. Ki to'ana hu mevakesh. He's finding a way of getting inside the Egyptians' way of living. Uva'etahi, and at that time, Plishtim moshlim ba'aretz. And therefore he's got to find a way to get into the Plishtim and to begin to act in a guerrilla warfare against them. Rabbi said that is the essence of Shimshon. Now, but there's one problem. Let's take line and let's do the beginning of the first sentence. Vayered Shimshon Timnata. Shimshon goes down. What does the word Vayered mean? Now, the word Vayered in this context is quite an amazing one. Because here, the Navi is aware of the complexities of Shimshon. Shimshon, on the one hand, is going to save. How's he going to do it? He goes down. He goes down in levels. Let's read the Sefer HaMitzvot of the Rambam. VaMitzvah HaMem Zayin, line number 45. Shizhiranu, Shelo Latur Achar Levavenu. We're not allowed to go after our hearts. Ad Shena'amin Deot Shem Hefech HaDeot Shechiyavtanu HaTorah. You're not allowed to follow your heart. You've got to follow your brain. Amlekatzeh Machshavtenu. Menasim Lev Gvul. You have to have parameters. Ta'amod etzlo. V'hi mitzvat HaTorah, v'hu amro yitaleh, v'lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei nechem. You're not allowed to follow your eyes and heart. What is your heart? The Sifri says, Lo tatur acharei levavchem zu minut. Following Avodah Zarah. Acharei enechem. the most dangerous of all the ta'avot, znut, the yetzer, the sex drive of a human being. And who actually is the symbol of the sex drive in the Torah? Says the Rambam, Kinyan sheneemar, vayomer Shimshon la'aviv, ota kachli. Take her for me. Ki hi yeshara be'enai. רוצה לומר, רוצה באומרו, זו זנות. הימשך אחר ההנאות והתאוות הגשמיות, והתעסק מחשבה בהם תמיד. You can't follow your desires. Now let's take the sentence. Go back to the sentence. What does he see? He's never spoken to this woman. As we'd say in slang, he sees this chick. He sees this beautiful Philistine girl. He says, she's the one I want. She is going to be the way. She's going to be the beauty queen of the Philistines. I'm going to marry her. That's the way I'm going to get into the highest elecons of the Plishtim, and that's the way I'm going to destroy them. Echelons. That's the way I'm going to get into them. He's going to use the sex in order to get into them. Say Chazal, this wasn't the correct way. Correct. Your objective is correct. Your matara is important. But the emtsaim, the way you're doing it, this is a yerida. So therefore, Shimshon has this complex way of looking at things. He thinks that through sex, through women, he'll be able to do it. Perhaps he does, perhaps he won't. In historical perspective, say Chazal, Va'aviv ve'imo lo yadu ki me'Hashem hi. But on the other hand, is he 100% correct? No. Is he 70% correct? Yes. But this 30% is what? Is rotten. He's going after ta'avot. Let's go, and I know this is going to be very, very difficult, because Shimshon is the most complex of all the Shoftim. Let us carry on with a fascinating statement of Rav Kook. Rav Kook comes along and says the following in line number 50. If there are things which are lacking, במהלך החיים של העוסקים באימוץ גופני. What do you think Shimshon was doing? He was doing weightlifting, he was doing boxing, he was running around, he was a wrestler, he was doing all the things in which way he was strengthening his muscles. That's what he was doing. What do you think? He was sitting and learning Torah? Doubt it very much. I don't think he had the capability of sitting and learning. But what was he doing? He was doing exercises the whole day. Because what can happen? ואל יפלא אם יש חסרונות במהלכי החיים של העוסקים באימוץ הגופני ובכל החיזוקים הארציים שבישראל, and with all the mundane things of strengthening Am Yisrael, כי אפילו הופעת רוח הקודש, even if this person, these people will have רוח הקודש, צריכה בירור מתערבות צחצוחי טומאה שמתערבים בה. In this behavior of strengthening your body, doing weightlifting, doing running, there will always be tum'ah, bits of tum'ah which intermingle with it. והיא הולכת ומטהרת ומתקדשת ומתבררת, פודרת עצמה מגלותה, עד שבאה לכלל דרך צדיקים. That means there are ways of getting out of it if this person will eventually purify himself and redeem himself from this galut, from this exile. עד שבא לכלל דרך צדיקים, ואור נוגה הולך ואור עד נחום היום. And this light will eventually, until the day becomes completely pure. So therefore, Rabotai, we are talking about Shimshon HaGibor. Shimshon is a weightlifter. Shimshon is a marathon guy. Shimshon is a wrestler. Shimshon is a boxer. That's what he does the whole day. And he hears this Spirit of God the whole time, you are going to save Am Yisrael, you are going to save Am Yisrael. So let's try to analyze a person like that. If any person would go crazy. And since he's so strong and his whole life is busy with what? Busy with weightlifting, therefore he goes after his ta'avot. And therefore, say Chazal, Tanu Rabbanan, line number 55. Shimshon be'einav marad. With his eyes, he rebelled against God. Shene'emar, Vayomer Shimshon el aviv, ota kachli. He'd never spoken to her before. All he did was he saw her. And seeing her already drove him crazy. Lefichach, nikru plishtim et einav. What happens at the end of the days? The plishtim take out his eyes. Shene'emar vayachzu plishtim vaynikru et einav. Ve'eni, isn't it written? V'aktiv aviv imo lo yadu ki me'Hashemu. What do you mean? His parents didn't know that all this is from Hashem. So therefore, on the one hand, God is pushing him. On the other hand, it's terrible. Say Chazal, ki azal mia bata yashrutei azal. He never even spoke to this woman. He never even knew her. All what he was she was a beauty queen. Speak to her. Is she befitting? No. He got after her eyes. That's what he saw. Not with speaking to her, not with seeing, has she got the correct personality? Is she a good person? No. In Shimshon's eyes, she was a beauty queen. She was the one he wanted. And that, in actual fact, was the means to an end. 30%, 70% correct, 30% rotten. Tzaddik pays at the end of his life also for the rotten things he did. And that's what Chazal say. Now, if there are any questions, please ask now, because this is getting more and more complex. But
Yes,
that is the pattern of life. Yes.
Yes. Okay. If it says in line 40 that in other words, the narrator is saying that if all of this is related to this Ruach Hashem that's percolating in the mind of Shimshon, it's like a bell, it's driving him crazy, then where does the criticism, how is the criticism justified? The criticism that Rav Kook seems to lay, the criticism of the Rambam.
Harold, Chazal even say this was considered a Yerida.
That it's what?
Chazal see it, this is a Yerida. Look at the Rambam. What does he say, the Rambam? This was like znut. That means taking a woman just for her beauty, and not only that, a shiksa. Yeah. Okay? Correct, Hashem is telling him messages. But has he got the ability to analyze correctly the messages of Hashem? He's got this, and he's got these messages from Hashem going through his mind. You have to save Am Yisrael. You have to save Am Yisrael. And correct, he strengthens his body, etc., etc., etc. What should he have really done? He should have really gone and asked somebody, is it correct for me? How am I going to get involved? No. He goes after his eyes. His parents say to him, what, there are not enough beauty queens amongst Am Yisrael that you've got to go after a shiksa? So that means this behavior, even in the way of knowing that Hashem is sending me to do something, I still have to work in certain parameters. So is everything correct?
He's misinterpreting all of
the
stuff.
He might be misinterpreting. He's misinterpreting 30% of what Hashem is sending to him. Okay? That means, let me ask you a question. What are the means to an end to save Am Yisrael? Are there any lines, okay, of in any intelligence agency, in any way of dealing with criminals? Are there any red lines? Or there's nothing? Everything is kosher. That is the question we always have to ask ourselves. Is every means kosher? Or do we come and say, no, some things are kosher, some things aren't? Is it Shimshon? Let's try to ourselves. Is it a bomb which we know is going off now? Is it what they call in Israel a ptsatsa metakteket, that we have to beat up somebody in order to tell us where the bombs are? Is our children being kidnapped, so to speak? And these people we know, they know where they are. That Shimshon wasn't there yet, right? Shimshon was at the beginning, okay? But Shimshon feels, in order to get into the world of the Plishtim, I need a beauty queen, okay? Shimshon says, the parents say, find a beauty queen and tell her, a Jewish beauty queen, and tell the Plishtim that she's the shiksa, but let them know that what? That she's Jewish. Therefore, this is the problems of Shimshon. Is that clear to everybody? I hope so. If there are any questions, please, we're going to go stage by stage into the world of Shimshon. Now, the Abrabanel, and we're now going to see a very, very big argument between the Rambam and the Abrabanel. This shiksa, this Philistine girl, does he magayah her or not? Does he ma'avir her? Does he give a gerut? Okay, which we're now going to speak about. Okay, and we'll see that there's a machloket, a difference of opinion, how this happened. The Abrabanel says, and we'll just start off the Abrabanel this week, and we'll, Emet Hashem, go into it deeper and deeper. Vayeret Shimshon Timnata, says the Abrabanel in line number 64. Matzanu Pamim Rabot, B'sipurei HaNevi'im, in the stories of the Nevi'im, Shayu Osim Pamim Dvarim Asher Lo Kadat, that sometimes the Nevi'im did something wrong. Kedei sheyetzeh mehem avodat hakel yitbarach, in order that eventually HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Jews will begin to believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kinyan, Eliyahu Bar Carmel, Eliyahu on Har Carmel. Shavar al Dat, he did an Aveirah. Why? Because at that time there was already a Beis HaMikdash, and since there was a Beis HaMikdash, you're not allowed to offer up a sacrifice outside the Beis HaMikdash. What does he do? He builds an altar, and in actual fact, what does he do? He makes a sacrifice on Har Carmel. Says Abrabanel, how could he do such a thing? But what does it say? Vaya lorat shah. It was an emergency. Kedei lefarsem b'toch b'nei Yisrael ki Hashem Elokim. It was an emergency. It's what we called a horat shah. This horat shah is agreed upon in the world of Chazal that this can be correct. V'chein, says the Abrabanel, v'chein ra'ui shenomar b'inyam Shimshon. This is Shimshon. Sh'asa dvarim asher lo kadin. He did things which are wrong. Lefi she'imtza to'anav, in order to find an excuse, li'nakem mi'plishtim. Kol sheken, shelo haya haruach eloki asher bo miyushav u'mesudar. Nothing was settled. Nothing was arranged in the brain of Shimshon. It was like a bell banging from side to side. It was like crazy thoughts going through him. This complex personality. Asher bo lo haya ruach eloki, asher bo miyushav u'mesudar, la'asot shuot k'sharaftim, v'lo haya dato shalem. In our generation, we will call him a what? A psychopath. We will call him whatever psychological names you'll give him. OCD, etc., whatever you want. ולא ידעתו שלם. אבל הקהל יתברך למשפט שמו וצור להוכיח יסדו. Hashem once appointed him to be like this rock. ולזה השפיע בו רוח גבורה. He became very, very strong. וחוזק מופלג. An unbelievable strength. והיה עם הפעמות. He was the whole time with his bell inside him. ונמשך מזה, שבראותו אישה תיטיב בעיניו. ולא היה מעצור לרוחו. ובחרות אפו לא יעמוד דבר לפניו. He couldn't stop himself from doing anything. וידמה, and it would appear, שבתום לבבו היה חושב שלעניין נזירות לא היה מחויב. The only things he was liable to do and liable to keep were the things כי אם בדברים Shizira malach alehem. What does Shimshon think? Shimshon thinks to himself, listen, my mother got this dream, this message. I'm a Nazir. What is a Nazir? I'm not allowed to. Any alcohol drinks, he's not allowed to drink. These are the three things. And the rest of the things, he had natural, tremendous physical desires. He speak biyado, לעשותם כן. לפי שאם היותה פעולשות משובשות מפני עצמם, even though these things were wrong, הנה ימשך בהם הנקמה מהפלישתים. וכבר בזה הבא הכתוב, and this is what the פסוק says, כי כאשר זכר שהלך שמשון אל תמנתה וראה שם אישה וחשקה בנפשו, when he wanted this woman, ואמר לאביו ולאמו שיקחו אותה לי, what did his parents say to him? אמרו לו אביו ואמו, האם בבנות אחיך וכל עמי אישה כי אתה הולך לקחת אשתו ערלים? ושמשון לא חשש מזה כלל. He couldn't care less about them. ולא אמר שיגייר אותה. He never ever said that what? She should have גיור. אמר לבד לאביו, אותה קח לי, כי ישרה בעיניי. רוצה לומר כי לא חשש אל האיסור. He didn't care about any prohibition. Couldn't care less. אבל הלך לבד אחר מחמד עיניו. ולפי שאמו הייתה מתרעמת על זה הרבה. And since his mother couldn't bear such a thing, לכן לא אמר לאמו. He never told his mother such a thing, because what does it say? It says, ויאמר לו אביו, ויאמר שמשון אל אביו. Look at the sentence number 3 in line number 49. line number 39. ויאמר לו אביו ואמו, האין בבנות אחיך ובכל עמי אישה, כי אתה הולך לקחת אישה מפלישתים ערלים? What should it be? ויאמר שמשון אל אביו ואמו. No. His mother is out of the picture now, says that Rabbenu. His mother could not bear the thought of somebody who was going to save Am Yisrael, that what? That he will marry a non-Jewish girl. Therefore, he only tells his father. He only tells his father such a thing because his mother is what we call in Avelut. His mother is in mourning. His mother is what? Cannot bear the thought of it. Why? Ulefi, line number 79. Let's go by number 79. ולפי שאימו הייתה מתרעמת איזה הרבה, לכן לא אמר לאימו. לפי שלא תאמר לו כמו שאמרה לבך, אם לוקח אישה מבנות חטא, if Yaakov will take a woman from בני חטא, למה לי חיים? What do I have to live for? So he knows his mother is so torn. Therefore he just goes and tells his father. Because if his mother will know that that he's taking a shiksa, then she might commit suicide. ואמר זה לאביו, לבד אותה כך לי, כי אישה בעיניו. וסיפר הכתוב הסיבה בכל זה. Why does all this take place? באומרו ואמיו ואמו לא ידעו, his parents never knew, כי מהשם, כי תואנו מבקש מפלישתים. רוצה לומר, כי הקהל יתברך נתן מקום לזה לשמשון. He gives place for Shimshon to have these tremendous things that I've got to save Am Yisrael, I've got to save Am Yisrael. How am I going to do it? I'm going to get a beauty queen from the Plishtim, and she's going to help me to do it. כי טוענה היא לנקם פלישתים. ואמר ובעת ההיא, פלישתים מושלים בישראל. להגיד שעשה הקדוש ברוך הוא סיבה לשינקמו ישראל מפלישתים. ולא בידיהם, not in the hands of עם ישראל, כי ביד שמשון. ושלא יעמוד ברשותם. כי אם ברשות פלישתים, אף בעת נקמה. He won't need to ask anybody. He won't need to ask permission of Am Yisrael. That's why he doesn't marry a Jewish girl. Because if he married a Jewish girl, then his parents-in-law will come and say, you can't do this. Go and ask the Sanhedrin. Go and ask the Bezdin. Go and ask the Kohen Gadol. Shimshon realizes that the minute he will marry a Jewish girl, then his whole plan will be finished and nobody will listen to him. כי אם ברשות הפלישתים אף בעת הנקמה, באופן שלא ימצאו הפלישתים צוענה על ישראל. Why does he do this also? That the Plishtim won't blame the Jewish people. Oh, you've got this Hercules guy who's doing this. אבל יהיה עניין מיוחס לשמשון לבדו. You've got this lunatic who's coming to kill us all. It's not your fault. We know it's not your fault. It's got nothing to do with you. We've got this lunatic, and that's the way he's behaving, like a lunatic. He is killing us all off. It's only Shimshon's fault. And on the other hand, the Plishtim won't fight against Am Yisrael. Mirat Shimshon. And it mentions that Aviv imo yardu atimnat lakakat isha leShimshon. Ki ha'el yitbarach sibev sheyirtzu b'zeh lemalot gzerato. At the end of the day, they did it. V'amru Chazal shnayim ba'u timnata. Two people, Chazal say, came to Timnah. Yudah shenit ala botabia. Yudah goes down to Timnah and he marries Tamar. And from there we have Malchut Beit David. V'shishimshon shenit ganeba. כתיב בירידה, ואמר שבהליכתו שמה עם אביו ואמו, יצא כפיר עריות, you will see later on, שואג לקראתו, רוצה לומר לקראת שמשון לבדו, והיה לו עוד שמפלישתים יבקשו את נפשו לבדו. And that we'll see later on, the story of the lion. That is the opinion of the Abrabanel. The Abrabanel says that he never was megayer her. The only thing Shimshon thinks that is asur from the Torah are the three things which the Malach told his mother. Therefore, he never drinks wine. He never eats any meat which is tameh. He never cuts his hair. That's what he thinks the whole of the Torah is. So therefore, we've got a Hercules who keeps the three mitzvot. He's very meticulous about keeping these three mitzvot. He has this mission in his life to save Am Yisrael from the Plishtim. He finds the ways and means of doing it, and in the eyes of the Abrabanel, it was like a Horat Sha'ah, but it's not a complete Horat Sha'ah, complicated Horat Sha'ah. That is the idea, the opinion of the Abrabanel, that he never actually marries Ms. Megayer. That is the opinion of the Abrabanel. Whatever it is, it's not a good thing. Now the Alshich, and here after the Alshich we'll finish off and we'll start Emetz Hashem the next time with the Rambam. So keep, please, your pages for the next shiur. But we're going to read what the Alshich says, one of the great commentators of the Tanakh. Vayeret Shimshon Timnata. Shalach Yehuda, when Yehuda went lemakom shelakach batish Knani, shal nisoem nema bagdal Yehuda, nema sham vayeret Yehuda. Ach betimnata in Timna, asher shelakach et Tamar, nema hinei chamicha ole Timnata. He's going to create the Malchus. Omnam b'Shimshon b'lechtecha sham lakachat bat arelim ne'ema vayered. Ki yeridato talo. This considered a yerida. Zeu vayered Shimshon timnata. Klomar, ma shel Yehuda הייתה שם עלייה, הייתה לשמשון ירידה. Right. וירא אישה. ויאמר לאביו ולאמו, קחו אותה, you have got to take her, klomar, gairuha, make sure she's a gioret. You've got to arrange my marriage on condition that she will be a gioret. Klomar gairuha, באופן תצדק בקיחה, in that way, the language of the Torah, kicha will take place. And what do they say? They say to her, ואומרם אליו, האין בבנות אחיך, כי אתה הולך לקחת אשתו ממשפחת הערלים. You're taking somebody who's a shiksa, even though that means a DNA is a shiksa. What do you want somebody from Gioret for? You don't even know her. השיב אמר, קח אותה לי כאישרה, לומר, אינה שם לב אל עמה. Don't take notice of her people. כי אם אליה. Just her. וזה אותה קח לי כאישרה בעיניי, לא עמה הערלים, not her people, ובהתגיירה, when she will become a Gioret, היא קטנה שנולדה דמי. She'll be like a baby. She's מנותקת, she's cut off from her people. ואביו ואמו לא ידעו כי מהשם היא. והם לא ידעו כי מהשם שבדרך שאדם רוצה מוליכים אותו. והוא, why is he doing it? טוענה הוא מבקש, להאחז בפלישתים. ולא בלא טענה, he can't do it without this plan, כי הלא בעת ההיא פלישתים מושלים בישראל. So here we have this huge argument between the Abrabanel and the Alshich at the moment. The Abrabanel say she was a shiksa. According to the Alshich, he was megayer her. And in Mitzvah Hashem, the next year, we will discuss the fascinating opinion of the Rambam, who speaks about this whole concept of the Giurim of Shlomo and Shimshon. Thank you, everybody. Mitzvah Hashem, the next year, please keep these pages. I will also post them on my, on the screen, but please keep them. And we will discuss this in great details because it has huge applications for what is known as today Giur for the sake of marriage. That means what happens, do we Megayah people when people fall in love, etc., etc., etc. And here we will learn the opinion of the Rambam. If anybody's got any questions, what we learned today, please ask now. I'm online for all of you. Or chat, whatever you want. Any questions? Nothing?
Yeah, wait, I have a question.
Yes, Harold, good.
Okay, yeah. First of all, I'm glad to be back. I've been gone for several months. So I was in America. I got stuck there. And so
how did you get back into the country?
Well, when they lifted the hotel requirement, so I came in, and so I was in Bidut for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
So
welcome back then.
But now I'm back. So I'm a little confused on the comparison between Moshe Rabbenu and Shimshon.
Yes.
I mean, are you saying that there's a distinction? They're contrasted, or they're very similar?
At the beginning of their life, they are contrasted. The first Ruach Hashem, which takes place in Moshe's mind, is the Ruach Hashem of Moshe Rabbeinu standing up, fighting for civil rights. Okay?
Yeah.
He saves, he kills the Mitzri, he stops Datan v'Aviram fighting, he saves the daughters of Yitro. These civil rights, which the Rambam speaks about in Moreh Nevuchim, is in actual fact the beginning of Ruach Hashem. That is the first stage. In Moshe Rabbeinu, he goes up and he goes up and he goes up and he goes up. But that is the initial stage. That means there's no such thing as a prophet who begins from the top. It doesn't exist, says the Rambam. All prophets have to go stage by stage. Prophecy doesn't happen just like that. You have to have the correct midot. You have to get the correct attributes. You have to have many different things. But the initial attribute which the Rambam claims about any prophet is his ability to care about other people. And that's what the Rambam calls Ruach Hashem, the Spirit of God, okay, which enables a person to see other people and stand up against other people's sufferings. And that's where Moshe Rabbeinu and Shimshon are the same. The fact, what happens is Moshe Rabbeinu goes up and up in Kedusha, and Shimshon goes down. That is their personalities already. That is, in actual fact, how Moshe Rabbeinu goes stage by stage up, and Shimshon unfortunately goes down right to the initial stage. Shimshon. Okay. Civil rights or fighting for the sake of people who are suffering is the initial stage of prophecy of Ruach Hashem in a person, which is quite amazing.
Rav Taylor.
Yes.
Shalom, this is Mike Steiner. I've got a question to do with Yehuda.
Yeah.
You mentioned, in contrast with Shimshon, Hinei Chamich Olei Timnata. Talked about Aliyah Yehuda, but the very beginning of the story, which led to that,
and that's written by Yered.
Vayered.
Correct. Yehuda has got a life of Aliyot and Yuridot. Okay? Vayered, Yehuda goes down, and then he goes up, because he says at the end, Tzadka mimeni. In front of everybody, the leader, the person who has, what's he called? He's Tzadka. That's the why he goes up. Rav Soloveitchik speaks about that in great detail in one of his articles, where Yehuda is the person like David HaMelech, the person who goes up and down. He also does Averas, he also goes up, etc., etc. Okay, so therefore in the life of Yehuda, the Torah speaks about the Yerida and the Aliyah. Shimshon, Bekoshi we find Aliyah. Doesn't exist. It's always Yerida. Okay, so if in the first stage you have 70% Kedusha, 30% Tumah, then it goes down to 60-40, etc., etc., etc. That's why Shimshon is the most complex personality of the whole of the Tanakh. But there's always Ruach Hashem behind him. But the balance of a person, the balance between the physical and the spiritual is the battle of Shimshon. And he never manages to overcome it. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, it's very, very, Shimshon is the hardest person to teach. Believe me, he is. Okay? Especially in our generation, where everything is so complex. Right. In Mitzvah Hashem, the next year, we'll carry on with the Rambam. See you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.